So it's nothing new when we see it on the back pages today, but it was confirmed by Croke Park yesterday what the strategic review committee, when it came to fixtures, would provide and what the three options are. So one of them is the most radical, in my opinion, which is the flip, where you're moving the league to the summer and the championship, the provincial championships, to the spring.
Which is like the most obvious and brilliant solution to all our problems.
It's my favourite, and it's one that, like we throw out this line that the league is the best competition we have in Gaelic football because it's the truth. And then people are like, well, but, you know, it doesn't mean anything. And also, but it's in the middle of winter. Quite often the worst weather we get in Ireland is in February and March. And the way to fix that is make it the most meaningful conversation and move it to the summer. The National League has been outstanding for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And like, it really, do you know what? I don't want to get too specific into teams or how this might line up. But if, like, we can kind of hold up what, say, Jim Gavin and Dublin have done so brilliantly throughout the decade, which is take their intuition to a whole new level. Like, I wonder if part of the reason why Dublin have got beaten a couple of times in the league is because you've got a week after week basis to the games, where teams have just, I know Dublin are coming off All-Ireland wins and they don't really care about the league, but I do wonder if there's just a bit more...
They've still won it most years. There's 7 seasons he won 4, did he? Is that right?
Well, he did it, of the 5 in a row, they didn't win 2 of them. So they like, I'm not saying for a second that they were weak, and if it was the main competition, they'd be way stronger in the league. Obviously, they probably would have done 5 in a row. I just think with just a bigger bunch of matches with more momentum, your favourite thing, coming and going throughout a league campaign, I just think even the top teams are more vulnerable, and it might lead to a bit more parity amongst the top counties, and then obviously it's parity all round because you've got divisions. So it's a good idea. Moving the league to the summer is a good idea.
Do we know why the CPA pulled out?
You see, this is something that...
What's obvious from this in terms of...
You see, this is something that I've been saying that, like, I actually think we don't have full clarity for. I know that they did a lot of media a couple of weeks ago, but so John Horn, I think it is, or is it maybe it's Fergal McGill, quoted today saying that the CPA obviously brought their own proposals to the table, and they're making this argument that the GAA's current proposals are like a Trojan horse, just trying to keep the status quo and trying to hammer this down for the next few years, whereas they say that the proposals the CPA brought were not actually of a high enough standard. They say that, for example, one of their proposals was that you would play off the 7 rounds of the league in 7 consecutive weeks, and Horn says that that's just not possible because you need 1 week off for, you know, to give people a break, or if weather hits and you need a bit of manoeuvrability. But that's the only reason that's cited in the Irish Independent this morning anyway. Like, CPA did kind of say that this was a small bit of a facade to actually maintain the status quo, and that's why they left proceedings and that they weren't listened to.
What happens now?
It goes to a special Congress.
I suppose I'm asking, where do we go from here on?
Yeah, you certainly are. A special Congress next April or May, I think, is what's going to happen here. You know, when they call a special Congress, they've got designs on making this thing happen. They don't call a special Congress for a failed proposal. And there will be a roadshow. That's what they're calling it over the next few weeks.
Oh.
But what a roadshow is...
I like the brand of the roadshow. It's a good brand.
What a roadshow is you tell everybody to vote for this.
And you deliver some grants.
Deliver some grants, whatever it may be.
Look, if the solution is that we get top quality 4 divisions.
Yeah, no, I would say that that's one of 3 proposals. One of the other proposals is basically the status quo, but it just kind of condenses the season a little bit more. Like it involves, I think, playing hurling and football finals and back-to-back weekends. That's certainly part of one of the 3 proposals. And then you've got the 4/8 model, which is where you've got 4 groups of 8 teams. So you would have your provincial championships, but they would actually have teams manoeuvred from other provinces into yours. So I'm not sure would they actually still be called Munster, Leinster, Connacht, Ulster, or would they? I presume they would.
Connacht conference as opposed to province.
So you would have whatever it is, maybe.
But you could just, maybe the names do matter, because. So would they say that the situation would stay the same? You'd have the league, and then you'd have your 4 provinces, and they would even things up a little bit. Yeah. So you would have 4 counties moving province, 3 from Leinster and 1 from Ulster. So I'm not sure what would happen. Would it be by geography, or would there be a rotating cast, or what the story might be? But yeah, it would be the provincial championship model. It would be called the 4/8. So they would be keeping their name, which would be interesting. But it's not as radical or as based on the standard of the counties as flipping the league will be. Yeah, exactly. The league is the right thing to do. But if everybody can just calcify behind that and get behind that, then suddenly we could have a radical shift and things. Just to clarify, the league will become the All-Ireland. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which would be fantastic. It also, the task force believes its proposals will bring more certainty to club players if its findings are embraced, says the end of Colin Pease's article on the back page here, which I kind of agree with. There are certain elements of this where you're like, okay, this is, there would be a part of it where club game or inter-county games would be pushed back deeper into the month of May, which would allow the April month to be solidified longer. Like, that for me is a positive step. There were a lot of positive steps in these proposals for the club player. And I know, just to reiterate, that the CPA have come out and stated why they did leave the fixtures task force. But for these specific fixtures, and now that it's come out and it's public, it's interesting to see if they were in the right place in actually leaving it, if their concerns about the club player are actually real, and I'm missing something here.
All right. Big night in the Premier League last night. Obviously, the big result we all know is that Chelsea beat Aston Villa. But apart from that, there was Merseyside derby. Liverpool beat Everton 5-2. Man United beat Spurs, beat Jose Mourinho by 2-1. Big win for Southampton against Norwich, which takes Southampton out of the relegation zone and leaves Brighton and Aston Villa very, very close to it at the moment. Newcastle also struggling a little bit at the bottom of the table too. West Ham were beaten, so are we to expect that precipitates change there by Wolves? Who knows? We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Obviously, Leicester are an unstoppable juggernaut at the moment. Really the only team left pulling it up, Liverpool, at the moment. Going to talk a little bit about Liverpool and how they're not celebrating a little bit later on in the show. Here's what's coming up for you. Sexton versus Hockey is today's big playoff in the sporting moments of the decade. So it's Johnny Sexton's Le Drop versus the Irish women's hockey team. We've got Ewan McKenna talking about rugby around about 8:50. I'm Angry is our very own Owen, and the NFL PAs, which is the NFL Players Association, Don Davis, was in Dublin recently for a conference organised by the GPA called Balance 2020. It was an attempt by the GPA to begin the conversation about restoring some balance to the lives of inter-county players. They talked about strength and conditioning, they talked about all sorts of different things, general physical health, sleep, and you can get the details of that on their website. And also they brought over Don Davis from the NFLPA. He's part of the committee who is actually negotiating on behalf of the players against the NFL for their next deal, which is up at the end of next year. So decent timing for that conversation to be happening, considering the same conversations are happening here. You can tweet us this morning using hashtag OTB AM. Time for the papers.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, OTB Sports Radio this morning, 7:40 AM for you. The back page of the Herald. Rashford to rescue. We're best when we attack quickly, says Ole as Jose returns. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer liked what he saw from his team last night, particularly in their transitions. Damning report into World Cup is the headline in Roy O'Connor's piece. Christie backs Farrell for dubs. So Paddy Christie, Sky Blue legend, worry of top job stress. But he is back in Desi Farrell for that gig. We'll get into David News 4 when we get into one of the other papers.
Yeah, but we'll get into it here because it's a lead on the back of the Irish Independent. News 4 and Best place Japan blame on Joe Schmidt. World Cup review shows that players were poorly prepared and suffered skills deficit, I should say. So on the same day that IRFU's performance director David Nucifora was unsparing in delivering the findings of the review of Ireland's latest World Cup failure, Rory Best also offered a withering assessment of Joe Schmidt's final days as head coach. So is this our review? Is this our
is it over?
Is this our 2007 moment that the All Blacks had? That David Nucifora is our Steve Hansen, and who was more Graham Henry, was it?
Yeah. Well, they got a bunch of outsiders to come in and go, what did you do, and what did you do, and what was your role, and what did you do, and how did you do it? And so there's one outside person was involved. It was the same person from 4 years ago. And so I'm just going to give you the Irish Times take on this as well, because there's two pieces. Too much detail led to too much tension. That's the headline on Gavin Cummiskey's piece from the Rory Best press conference yesterday. And mounting anxiety a factor in Irish woes, Nucifora. This is Jerry Thornley's piece about the Nucifora briefing yesterday. So, go on, what were you going to say?
Well, there's a lot of different things here that we can pick up on. And so basically, David Nucifora has a 50 bullet point plan, it seems, or that's his assessment.
Do we know? Because we haven't seen it.
We haven't seen it. That's what I was going to say. So we've got a press briefing yesterday rather than actually the publication of this. But maybe there's loads of great secrets in it that we're not allowed to see and to give an advantage to other countries. The one thing I want to start with is this line in Rory O'Connor's piece. Nucifora said that coaches had taken the decision to try and get 10 to 15% more from the 2018 game plan rather than try to evolve their style of play to encompass more offloading and effective counter-attacking. Where in the name of God is any team at a high performance level going to get 10 to 15% more from an existing game plan after being the best team in the world? Well, I just really don't understand any sort of thought behind that they're sitting down and they're like, we have executed almost no perfect for an entire calendar year. What can we do? We can try and develop something new to complement this brilliant game plan, or we can try and make this near perfect thing 10 to 15% better.
Well,
that ain't going to happen.
Well, I suppose if you have, if you give away 4 penalties in a match, and in your next game you give away 3 penalties, you could say that that's a 25% or whatever your maths, however you're going to do it, 33% improvement on your performance. And maybe it's that type of stuff that they were thinking, like execute even better than our near perfect execution. Like you can see how you could talk yourself into, oh, there was a knock on there, and there was one lost line out there. So if we go perfect in the lineouts, perfect in our scrums, find touch from all our penalties, miss tackles at a rate that's 25% better, then, you know, what's to lose? We're making better. We're layering on top of the already stuff.
And if we score more points than the All Blacks in a World Cup quarter-final, we'll be World Cup semi-finalists. All those things are true.
It's true.
But what's realistic?
I don't know. It's a good point. I think that probably when you're stuck in the weeds of it, you're like, well, we could. They don't need to completely rip up the game plan. This whole notion that like everything they did in 2018 was so predictable that by the end of 2019 it was going to be worked out. It was like, do most of that stuff very well and add a little bit of something. Rory Best is talking about complacency in one of the pieces I read. I don't know if it was, it might have been Kieran O'Rahilly's piece. He was saying that they did get a little bit complacent, that it's in Gavin Cummins' piece here as well. I think we believed what everyone was saying. You're very quick to say don't believe what they're saying when it's negative, but you're not as quick to say that when it's positive. We should have been more streetwise. Grand Slam, autumn beating the All Blacks, swept the World Rugby Awards, and I think we went to Portugal. We slipped back to where we had been nearly even pre-Joe. So the training camp didn't go well. And he also says that, you know, this, I don't know if everybody is aware of the model of the week that the All Blacks come up with, where on Tuesday and Wednesday the coaches are doing all the talking, they're installing the game plan, and then the team takes over, and by the time the captain's run is over, the coaches stand back and the players look after it. That's the whole point of it. Ireland had adopted that model, but during the World Cup, Schmidt and the coaches, he says the coaches, so I don't want to, maybe it was just Joe, maybe it was all of them combined, had stepped back in and had started to take more responsibility and to talk more and to have more meetings. And so they had a meeting on the Friday morning before the All Blacks game, when normally the last meeting would have been at the very latest on Thursday night. So he's saying, you know, what's supposed to be less tension is already ratcheted up because everybody's a little bit on it. And yeah, it looks like they went away from the stuff that made them great in the first place.
So this is the week of the All Blacks game. I don't think we've got clarity on whether or not Joe Schmidt was as controlling the week of the Japan game. Now, I've got a suspicion, like we don't know what happened. Like he talks about the defeat to Japan, and I don't know, he says that perhaps that there should be more changes and things like that, but he doesn't mention Joe Schmidt being too controlling. I wonder if Schmidt did hand over the control of that of the week in the Japan game.
So it doesn't sound like that at all. It sounds like they didn't take the Japan game as seriously as possible. As a group, I suspect Schmidt took it seriously and couldn't communicate that to the players. But
I've clearly got a different view on this to you. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, well, Schmidt has obviously handed over the reins as normal, like the All Blacks do in the lead up to the Scotland game and the lead up to the Japan game, and then the players didn't execute against Japan, and Schmidt might have been a little bit pissed off about that and was like, next time we're in a big game situation, I've got to wrestle back a little bit of control.
I think, sorry, to go back to the Cummins' piece here, the over too much control had started before the World Cup.
Okay.
So they had to step in after the game against Twickenham where we got hammered in August, 57-15. And after that game, the leadership group, which includes Best, Sexton and O'Mahony, approached head coach Joe Schmidt seeking increased player control 24 hours out from games. No more meetings, stop the information overload.
Okay.
Players struggling to cope.
Okay, I didn't see that line. The pre-season training camp is that took place before Twickenham, wasn't it? Or was that right before Twickenham? Because like we were all talking about the game in Twickenham saying, well, the training camp must have gone really well because they were all out on their feet. And actually, it was actually the more obvious answer. No, it just went really badly, and that's why they performed badly. And this is now going to live in a little bit of infamy when it comes to Ireland in big tournaments and their pre-season preparations.
Portugal is the new Saipan.
It kind of is. So, God, I don't know. Like between that and between the Chiba training camp where Robbie Henshaw gets injured, Rob Kearney gets injured.
Yeah, and they're complaining about the facilities there. Does that come up? Was that one of the points?
I haven't seen it in the papers today. Certainly not in the Irish Independent today, so I'm not sure was that brought up again yesterday, but I know Schmidt obviously brought it up.
My issue with this the whole way through has been that David Nucifora has been doing the review into the performance. He is in charge of the high performance department. It's his job. Thorny has a line about the book stopping with the coach, but actually the book stops with Nucifora because it's his department. He was the one who put on the record, our express job here is to go out and do something we had never done before, and let's get past the quarter-final. That was the point all along about, like, we've turned the quarter-final into this massive mountain that is unscalable by us mere pygmy Irish people, because we talk about that and nothing else. Maybe if we shifted the focus away from that to like trying to win it, or we're not here to just reach the quarterfinals, or like I don't know, but something else other than that. And he wasn't interviewed. They didn't ask him, what did you do? How did you do in your role? And he seemed a bit taken aback at the question, just from here's what happens with Thornley in his piece. In the course of this review process, who reviewed Nucifora's performance or interviewed him? No one interviewed me. Maybe they should have. That's not a bad idea. I'm sure they will at some point. We'll sit down and talk about, how the season went, how the block of time went. But no, my role is to look at this and be as objective and clear as I can as to how we went. I'm not great at judging my own performance. It's not a skill that I have. I mean, I'm always amazing, right? Is that not human nature?
Well, 100%. And
how can you be objective about yourself? Because you know the mistakes that you made, and you know the million different data points that went into every single decision. So how can you then go, oh, but look, I let them ride with that. I made that, something else was going on, and I got a bit distracted. Because everybody makes excuses for themselves in all facets of life.
Somebody needs to hold a mirror up to David Nucifora.
And to the RFU.
The RFU.
This is all, the book stopping with Joe Schmidt and the players, and it's like, okay, fair enough, but they're saying don't throw the baby out with the bathwater is the line that's coming across. All our processes are perfect. Are they? Are they all perfect? Would Donncha Ryan not have been a better presence around that squad than John Klein, say? Is it not possible that we could find a way to allow some players to leave and come back? Not part of the conversation here. No decisions that we made were wrong about any of that stuff. It was exclusively down to a bad training camp, a bit of complacency. Our psychological support wasn't strong enough. Nothing to do with the IRFU.
Yeah.
Absolutely none of their fault. None of their decision making was wrong, according to the IRFU.
Yeah, it's but you can see also as well where Nucifora is, where his words are coming from. If I'm in his position, I'm probably going to be similarly saying, well, everything I did, I thought I was doing pretty well. But that's not the vantage point with which you can judge yourself properly from. Somebody else literally has to do that. Like if Graham Henry can come in and analyse what's gone wrong at Leinster, because that's essentially what he did, unless I'm mistaken here. Like, is there not a figure like that that could be brought in to look at what the IRFU themselves have done? And it can just be a dialogue. It doesn't have to be a rubber-stamped, hard-hitting report. It can just be like, listen, we're opening the doors to you. You've executed at the very highest level. You've won World Cups. Can you come in and actually look at what we're doing on a top-down level? And let's just have a conversation about this, rather than saying, no, we're going to produce our own report and then we're exempt from any of the blame.
And the point is, no one's looking for a head and a platter here.
No.
It's actually just, the point that you make is it's a conversation. What could we have done better? Are our processes right? And if somebody from outside, I don't know, there's a million different people that you could use. You could just use a management consultancy firm who come in and go, well, these are the other alternatives around the world that people are doing. These are if we've wargamed out a bunch of different scenarios, and at the end of it, you always finish as a quarter-finalist. That's your level, lads. You're going to have to get used to it. Or once the draw was made, you were drawn against the two best teams. Nothing you could have done. Once that draw was made, you were finished. Whatever. I don't believe any of that stuff, but whatever they come and say. But this bit about I'm going to review my own performance and go, I was good, but I've got 50 points where we could do things better. We have a skills deficit.
Just Connacht
didn't have a skills deficit when Pat Lam was their coach, did they? Leinster were the best passing team in Europe under Joe Schmidt. Leinster don't have a skills deficit when they play with Stuart Lancaster and the game plan that himself and Leo Cullen put in place. Do we have a skills deficit then?
No, well, obviously not.
So, like, these are all fairly nebulous work-ons that will help us to improve. But it reeks a little bit of bullshit.
But the thing is, they're following up on the bullshit, if that's what you believe it to be, because he says Andy Farrell and his coaches are going to be going out helping top-level players develop their skills, as well as those players coming through the system. So this skills deficit is not just a notion that they've thrown out there. They actually fully believe in this, because Andy Farrell is going to go and work on this with senior players.
I mean, so maybe that means is that an implicit criticism of the way that we trained?
Perhaps.
That we didn't do enough work on skills? Again, you bear in mind that Leinster became the best passing team in Europe under Joe Schmidt. That was what their stated ambition was. And those players seemed to respond to that. So, I don't know. It just feels like... I can't say it's a whitewash because we haven't seen it. Maybe the document is unbelievably hard-hitting that the Rugby Management Committee of the IRFU have got, that they're not making public. Why are they not making it public?
Like like you can kind of read, so I wasn't in the room yesterday for this, but you can kind of read between the lines as to what fingers are being pointed where. So just another section from Rory O'Connor's piece. There are 50 recommendations out of the process, and they will be kept in-house, but Nusafor's presentation was open and pointed. They will make uncomfortable reading for the coaching staff, the senior player group, and performance coach Enda McNulty, whose job it was to have the team mentally prepared. Kind of suggests, his job was to have the team mentally prepared, as if Nusa is very much saying that was your job and you failed in doing that job. Found that the team suffered from performance anxiety, unable to cope with the mantle of being the world's best team on the back of the stunning success in 2018. Again, perhaps pointing at the performance coach in that case. So there are many scapegoats wandering around the farm of David Nusa at the moment.
Except himself. Except himself in his own report. And he admits that nobody interviewed him for this, and that his job... So bear in mind, he was Joe Schmidt's boss. Now, they were also mates. That's the other thing. Like, they'd worked together in the past. So a couple of the key points, I don't know if we've covered these. A disproportionate focus for preparation on the opening game in Pool A against Scotland at the expense of the second game against host Japan 6 days later. So essentially, they got the team selection for that wrong because they didn't appreciate the fact that Japan were going to be any good. Rory Best actually name-checks Dave Kilcoyne and says, look, Kilcoyne should have started, especially in that Japan game. That there would have been an injection of energy, there would have been a ripple effect from that. His own situation, he's like, I don't want to get the quote exactly wrong here, so where was the Kilcoyne piece?
The Kilcoyne piece, I don't want to get this quote wrong either.
He talks about essentially, you can't drop your captain because where does that leave you? Suggesting that maybe he needed not to play back-to-back 80 minutes and that they could have dropped him. But if they've dropped him, they're going to have to play Sexton. So they got the selection for the Japan game wrong. They didn't focus on it.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
He's on Ireland's defeat to Japan. I think as a player, you trust the coach, and that's what we do. I think we look and think, could we have finished the front five, freshened the front five in some shape or form? If you inject Dave Kilcoyne to start that game, was that ripple effect, the burst of energy that we needed? Someone coming in with the carrot of, you're playing in the big game. With me, it's a difficult one at 37, playing 80 minutes to 6 days later, turning around and playing again. But then if you do not play, you're captain. What does that say?
Yeah, it would have been fine to rest your captain, I think, for that game if he wasn't our best hooker. Was he undroppable because he was playing so well, or was he undroppable because nobody else was playing well enough to push him? They need to continue to develop player skills. The decision to stick with the tried and tested game plan that brought the Grand Slam. And then performance anxiety is obviously the point you were making. And certainly there is a subtext here that Enda McNulty probably won't be very happy with. To be able to manage the stress and expectation of performance, I really do believe it's an important area for us to look at and service better our staff to deal with. Anyway. The whole area of psychology has to be improved, as well as health and well-being. It's an area we do have to try and upgrade and upskill ourselves in. Irish Rugby, the best and most professional organisation, the amount of money that we spent on the preparation for it, and the amount of coaching staff, the amount of strength and conditioning staff they have, and they're saying that we're not that good at psychology and health and well-being. These are fairly fundamental things. Again, that's all part of stuff that he has to have rubber stamped. Josh Schmidt comes and says, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. And he's like, yeah. Or he's like, no, I think we should be doing this and this. That's his gig. But where's he being held to account in any of this?
Nowhere, it seems. He does also say that he's got full confidence in Andy Farrell leading things up from the start of next year. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, the YouTube commenters aren't happy. Move on from the rugby, lads. Come on, move on. So much egg.
Back page of the Mirror is Rashford 2, Special 1. Marcus double makes it miserable for Mourinho. And Cop drop Silva into chop zone. And hype not for best.
What?
Cop drop Silva, so into chop zone.
Right, okay.
They've...
Sounds like you're saying something else there.
Yeah, well, basically everything are in the bottom three, Ger. Dub's job, so demanding then, says Paddy Christie, as you've already mentioned.
Running away with it. Liverpool's title charge. Powers on as Origi stars in Derby victory. Divock Origi, only the big games and only the big goals, it turns out. United we stand. Rashford ensures no happy return for Jose to Old Trafford. And then Tony Martin has a piece in the back about Jim Gavin. And also they're talking about... where's it gone here? Sorry, GAA Task Force recommends new 8-team provinces. So that's their line that the Examiner are going with today. Obviously, they have been covering this a good bit over the last while. Provinces to be redrawn in GAA's bold new era. Can we redraw the provinces and also make sure that the leagues move to the summer? Because that's the most important thing.
So you're
Either way, you just have them four groups of 8, no matter what happens, because that's the right thing to do.
Well, the league is 4 groups of 8 anyway.
No, for the provinces.
For the provinces, so...
Yeah. Irrespective, from now on, we don't have a 12 team and whatever. We're going to have 4 8s, and that's it. It's a nice, handy number. It
is a handy number, but I'm actually not against the idea of just leaving the provincial championships as they are and just pushing them to make them pre-season. And then if you don't have enough games in your province, you can go organise challenge matches or whatever. It's pre-season.
4 8, and it's the same for everybody. Everybody gets the same number of games.
It's just very samey to what the actual championship is going to be. Then you go into another 4 groups of 8.
But it's not samey at all. It's like the league.
I know it's based on meritocracy rather than geography.
Yeah.
So it's different. Like it's different categorisation, but it's the same format. I don't know. Like, would I take that as opposed to the current format? Yes. But I think there's a nice medium here where the provincial traditionalists can actually get something from this. Back page of the London Times this morning is Rashford humbles Mourinho. Rugby Chiefs £300,000 payoff. So the Rugby Football Union made a $300k plus payoff to its former chief executive, Steve Brown, who resigned abruptly last year after claims the organisation was in difficulties because of poor financial management. So Steve Brown, who quit in November 2018 after only 15 months in the post, was in charge when the RFU posted an annual loss last year of £30.9 million. And Sheffield Wednesday have threatened to sue the Football League after claiming that misconduct charges were brought against the club over the sale of Hillsborough Stadium are unlawful.
Jason Hullison says, good day from Smoky Sydney, gents. How are you doing? What time is it there? 8 o'clock in the evening. Nice rounding into summertime there as well. Paddy Dunn says, another non-Mourinho news. Mason Mount scores a lovely volley for Chelsea against Villa. Great control and vision by Tammy Cheston, ball down. Chelsea still choosing defending as an option. Yeah, I think Chelsea that was a big win for Chelsea last night by Manchester United, damaging Spurs. Every little death by 1,000 cuts that you can get for Spurs at this stage is good news for Chelsea. Sorry, the rest of the Irish Times then this morning, which is the non-rugby stuff, is Liverpool brush past fragile rivals with ease. That's the 5-2 win. Mount ends drought and Villa resistance. Vardy stretches scoring run as Leicester go second, and comfortable Wolves turn up the heat on Pellegrini. Pellegrini's on his way out surely at this stage. FAI seeks sponsor as 3 cancels deal. This was the news that came through yesterday, which I hadn't thought of. Somebody pointed out that there's the death knell for Ireland jerseys for Christmas, because obviously there's going to be a new one out next summer. And I suspect that if you were going to buy a jersey, maybe you buy it anyway. Here's the thing: if Santa gets the request, Santa can't say, "Look, son, 3 have changed their sponsorship, so you know we're going to need a new one next summer."
The elves are already made that jersey.
Exactly, and Santa has to deliver.
He really, really does. So that's a bit of a shame. But Santa can make a new one for next Christmas, which is the positive. There's always a next Christmas.
There is, I suppose that's true. The new jersey, whoever takes over the sponsorship will be able to push it out quite quickly, and by that stage there'll be a new CEO, right? And a new board, and a new president. Everything will be rosy.
We'll be on to interim CEO number 74.
We'll be looking forward to our World Cup bid, our joint UK and Ireland World Cup bid, where Croke Park hosts the opening ceremony.
After getting to the Euro semi-final.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful times ahead. It's all rosy. Back page of the Irish Daily Star, read and buried. Silva facing sack after Derby rout. You've got that story as well about the sponsorship for the Republic of Ireland. 3 adding FAI woes as pressure builds. No happy returns for Jose, beaten 2-1 at Old Trafford last night. And there's a picture of Marcus Rashford and Ashley Young. Marcus Rashford in unbelievable form last night. Glimpses of Ronaldo sometimes in his performances last night. I hope I'm not overstating it. Back page of The Guardian.
You think Rashford is as good as like the world's best young footballer at the moment?
Yes.
You would have him number one, basically.
Not number one, no. I would always. I'm a Kylian Mbappe guy all the way. And like the problem with Marcus Rashford now is that there is a new generation of superstars coming up behind him as well. Your João Felixes and all that. But I think of the Kylian Mbappe generation, it's Mbappe number 1, Rashford number 2. And I know most people will disagree with that. I just think on pure talents, like he showed it last night again, he's sublime. Back page of The Guardian is Reds 5-star Express, Mane and Origi inspire Mersey Derby thrashing. The Irish Daily Mail then is Average Joe. Schmidt gets flack in report and from Best. Mourinho feels the pain on his return to Old Trafford. And GAA football final 1 week after hurling, asks Mark Gallagher. That is part of the proposals revealed by Croke Park yesterday.
Here is the front page of the Daily Telegraph this morning. The Headingley hero, and it's a picture of Bob Willis sprinting off after his match-winning performance at Headingley. The man who bowled one of the most magical spells in history dies aged 70, and so there's a lot of obituaries for Bob Willis, who passed away yesterday, and then there's loads of football for him as well in the papers today.
Back page of The Sun is Crash Bang. Crash is to do with Manchester United. Delhi furious as Marcus ruins Jose return, and Bang is to do with Jordan Shaqiri there. 5-star Reds shove Silva towards exit. And that quote from Rory Best: whenever you start to leave little bits undone, they'll always come back to bite you. And weak point, the FAI has delayed releasing its accounts by 24 hours to present a united front in the face of the mounting crisis.
Yes, the whole board are going to be there on Friday. It was due to be on today, and it got put back 24 hours. So good for Irish journalism. One of Irish sports journalism's biggest days of celebration happens to be taking place today. I wonder, was there any connection?
It's the Manager of the Year Awards.
Signified Manager of the Year Awards.
I think I'm still hungover from going to that 2 years ago. Front page of the Racing Post is Percy set for a min clash as he embarks on road to redemption, and Potter working his magic on the back of the Racing Post. Gunners may be left spellbound. It's an 8:15 kick-off at the Emirates Stadium tonight. Arsenal against Brighton.
4 minutes past 8 this morning here on OTB AM. Plenty more coming up over the next hour. We've got the latest in our search for Ireland's most memorable sporting moment of the decade. Last night, Shane Lowry absolutely hammered Irish Rugby's win against New Zealand in Chicago to make it through to the quarterfinals, where he will face either Le Drop of Johnny Sexton or the Irish Hockey Summer, which is really... It's not the Irish Hockey Summer, it's the last year, isn't it? It's not qualifying for... It's not this year. It's not qualifying for the Olympics.
No,
it's reaching the World Cup final. Yeah. I mean, come on, this is going to be one-way traffic.
Well, you were anti-hockey's inclusion.
Well, I just didn't think they should have been shooed in. They were shooed in. It was like, everybody voted for the top 4 immediately. I'm like, hang on a second.
That's democracy.
It's a better achievement this year.
Brexit means Brexit.
It's a better achievement this year reaching the Olympics than it was reaching the semi-final of the World Cup, because the Olympics is the be-all and end-all in their sports. It's kind of like saying...
Don't agree with that.
It's like the Irish rugby team winning a quarter-final in the rugby eventually and winning a Grand Slam in the same year, and like, Grand Slam, they won the tournament. No, the other thing is more important on a global scale. Anyway, look.
No, it's not. But like, no, the achievement to date, like if they get to an Olympic final, then you can make your argument.
We'll have Ewan McKenna with us a little later talking Irish rugby before 9 o'clock. We're back talking football. Michael Bridge of Sky Sports News after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.